Intel and AMD are important players in the CPU space. The same can be said about Apple ever since they switched to their very own SoCs, which include their ARM CPUs. But with each of them constantly bringing improvements to their respective CPUs, who comes out on top? And in which areas? In this video, we're going to put them head to head and we will dive deep into what they each excel in. From performance to efficiency, there's quite a bit to cover. Let's start with performance. Apple currently leads when it comes to single-thread performance. The M5 chip, which was Apple's most recent addition to its SoC lineup, brings noticeable performance improvements compared to the M4 lineup, especially in single-thread performance, and so it does appear to be the best chip from Apple in terms of single-thread performance. There does seem to be a significant difference between Apple's best and Intel's best. Intel's best CPU in single-thread performance is the Core Ultra 9 285K. Now, this CPU's single-thread performance is at a very similar level as that of the Apple M3 Ultra from early 2025, and so that means it's behind the M5. But despite being behind Apple in single-thread performance, Intel finds itself in a better position compared to AMD. AMD's best CPU, the Ryzen 9 9950X3D, offers slightly lower single-thread performance compared to the Core Ultra 9 285K, and significantly lower single-thread performance compared to the M5 and the M3 Ultra. But which chips from Apple and Intel are more comparable with the Ryzen 9 9950X3D? That would be the Intel Core Ultra 5 245K from late 2024 and the Apple M3 Pro from late 2023. Both of these offer approximately the same level of single-thread performance as the Ryzen 9 9950X3D. Now, things change quite drastically in multi-thread performance. This time, the M3 Ultra is Apple's best chip. It offers identical performance to the AMD EPYC 9384X and performs at a similar level as the AMD EPYC 7662. As for how the M3 performs relative to Intel chips, it performs slightly better than the Intel Xeon W7 3565X and just a bit worse than the Intel Xeon Gold 6548Y. The M5, on the other hand, is on par with a lower class of AMD and Intel CPUs when it comes to multi-thread performance. More specifically, it performs at a similar level as the AMD Ryzen AI 7 Pro 450 and the Ryzen 7 5800X3D from 2022, which I personally find very interesting. As for how the M5 does compared to Intel CPUs, it performs at a similar level as the discontinued Core i9 9940X from late 2018, which is even more interesting, and the Intel Xeon Gold 6434 from early 2024. Okay, so we've just looked at the best from Apple in multi-thread performance, but what about Intel and AMD? Intel's best CPU at the moment appears to be the Xeon 6960P, which is nearly identical to the AMD EPYC 9745 and performs better than the AMD EPYC 9B14. AMD, on the other hand, well, they've got the behemoth that is the Ryzen Threadripper Pro 9995WX, and that's their absolute best CPU right now. I would definitely recommend checking out videos from big creators who are fortunate enough to get their hands on a custom system featuring this CPU. But overall, when it comes to multi-thread performance, AMD is clearly in the lead. Now, of course, benchmarks give us a general idea of how well a CPU performs. But you will find that Apple chips, Intel chips, and AMD chips perform at their best in different sorts of tasks. For example, you will likely get the best out of a high-end Apple SoC if you're performing tasks like audio, photo, and video editing, and of course, general productivity. But more recently, Apple has been focusing on optimizing AI performance. Along with the other components of the SoC like the GPU and the neural engine, a faster CPU is needed to support these improvements. There is a fair bit in common between Apple as well as Intel and AMD. Assuming you have enough RAM and suitable graphics in your system, Intel and AMD CPUs also both perform at their best when performing tasks like audio, photo, and video editing, as well as general productivity. But where they both have a clear edge over Apple is in gaming, as they both offer many suitable options. There is also the fact that some of the Intel and AMD chips mentioned in this video are actually intended for servers, so not for personal use. Those ones actually excel in different sorts of tasks, like running a large number of virtual machines, and many forms of high-performance computing like scientific and engineering simulations. But in order to be a bit more realistic, we need to acknowledge that not many of us are willing or able to buy high-end Intel or AMD CPUs, which are typically more expensive. Whether a person is building their own desktop PC, buying a pre-built one, or buying a laptop, the CPU budget is generally not very high. Mid-end or high-end CPUs that are reasonably priced usually get the job done for most people. For example, my main system has an Intel Core i7-14700KF from late 2023, and it's absolutely great for my purposes. Games that I typically play run a lot smoother and at a much higher resolution than what my laptop was capable of. Not to mention, editing my videos at 4K 60 would have been much harder if it weren't for this CPU, so in a way, it definitely played a role in bringing this channel to life. But back to the main discussion. The average customer is able to buy an Apple device with a high-end SoC. Like right now, you can buy an M5 MacBook Pro, and even then, if that's too expensive, you can buy an iPad Pro, which is cheaper and also includes the M5. What I'm getting at is that Apple is allowing normal users like us to use a device that is more power efficient thanks to each subsequent SoC iteration. Ever since Apple introduced its first ARM SoC, the M1, back in 2020, we not only saw performance improvements, but also more power efficiency compared to previous Intel-based Mac devices. This is still the case today, with the more recent Apple chips drawing less energy for the same tasks, in other words, better performance per watt, compared to their Intel and AMD counterparts. This is especially helpful for devices that run on battery power, but still need that high performance offered by Apple SoCs, like the MacBook and the iPad. Some of the factors that help Apple achieve this include the fact that, by design, SoCs are inherently more power efficient. You've got elements like unified memory across components like the CPU, GPU, and neural engine, as well as custom interconnects, all of which help to reduce wasted energy. There is another relevant aspect that I've discussed in some of my previous videos, and that's the fact that Apple is gradually gaining more control over the components of their devices, which seems to be the result of a long-term strategy. From an SoC perspective, having that harmony between your own software and your own hardware makes it easier to work towards better power efficiency than it would be if you were working with an equivalent component from another company. But what does the future hold for Apple, Intel, and AMD? Starting with AMD, it looks like the Zen 6 microarchitecture is planned for later this year. This will allow for a better class of CPUs that will deliver better gaming and AI performance. Zen 6 CPUs are expected to be based on TSMC's 2nm process. AMD also appears to be already working on the future beyond 2026. More specifically, the Zen 7 microarchitecture is expected to bring even more improvements to everything I already mentioned with Zen 6. But on top of that, AMD is aiming for even higher clock speeds, possibly exceeding 6 GHz. This would definitely contribute to an even smoother experience across the board and would especially help with single-thread performance. Intel, on the other hand, is looking to launch its Core Ultra Series 4 CPUs under the codename Nova Lake later this year. It looks like this new class of CPUs is intended to compete directly with Zen 6 CPUs from AMD, because Intel is likely bringing 52 cores, which, when coupled with increased cache, will most likely translate into better gaming performance. Beyond 2026, we may be looking at improved iterations of Intel CPUs, like Razor Lake in 2027, which may feature CPUs with new architectures for P-cores and E-cores. Titan Lake in 2028, possibly focusing strictly on laptops and refining the architecture, and Hammer Lake in 2029, which may be the culmination of Intel's collaboration with Nvidia in order to bring a powerful iGPU alongside already powerful CPUs. As for Apple, the near future revolves around the rest of the M5 lineup, that is the M5 Pro and the M5 Max. The M4 Pro and M4 Max already provide enough power for their respective purposes, so the M5 Pro and M5 Max are likely to further build on that, and they may be released later this year. What's more interesting is that Apple is set to be developing a processor for server and data center use. The main purpose of these would be to serve inquiries from Apple Intelligence, and so they're not really looking to sell them to businesses and compete with Intel and AMD. The codename they're using for this chip is Baltra, and it's apparently being developed in collaboration with Broadcom. Development may be completed by 2027, but definitely let me know what you think about Apple, Intel and AMD down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please like, share and subscribe. And feel free to let me know in the comments if there is anything tech you're interested in and want me to make a video about. Also, please consider supporting me by donating to my channel through buymeacoffee.com. I would really appreciate any support as I continue to bring fun and interesting content like this. Only if you can, of course. Link down below. This was the Wizard of Tech, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.